Hey, what's up? Hello, everyone. Welcome into Fantasy Filmball, the show where we turn movies into sports and sports into something we don't talk about here. My name is Matt.
My name is Dyl, and today we are continuing with our Oscar predictions. We are in a new month. And Matt, what should we call this month of predictions?
Oh, this is pre-fall festivals. For this prediction set,
Boom.
We are going to be going all the way up until Telluride begins, up until Venice begins, right before TIFF. So this is going to be our last predictions before we see a bunch of these movies, because I'm going to TIFF. Dylan, you might go to New York, which would be pretty cool. That said, this is our final predictions before things get real, before the real Oscar season starts going. So at this point, we have to talk a little bit about what has changed this week. There is always stuff changing, and we want to keep you updated before we get into our predictions. So first off, Barbie hits $1 billion. What do you think, Dylan?
This solidifies it into the Best Picture race. It has a tech package. Gosling looks pretty good, and adapted screenplay is rising up the ranks. That's a pretty good package to get itself into Best Picture, not just in the 10 range, but possibly a top 5 range.
Barbie hitting $1 billion. It's Top Gun Maverick now. It's undeniable. It's a cultural phenomenon. It's just going to happen the way that Top Gun did last year. We can't deny it. Also, think of it this way. It's gonna win Golden Globe Comedy, probably. It could win SAG. It's gonna win Adapted Screenplay, be nominated for Director. Doesn't that feel like it could win Best Picture in that circumstance?
It does.
It does. It's top 3. I don't know what to tell you. That's just the way it is. All right, next thing. Saltburn has been announced as the opening film of the London Film Festival. It's also going to be premiering at Telluride, but it's not playing Venice or TIFF or New York, which is weird to say the least. Also, I'm gonna say the London opening night film does not have a great track record. Let's go back in time a little bit. So last year, the opening night film of the London Film Festival was Matilda the Musical. Before that, it was The Harder They Fall in 2021. In 2020, Mangrove. 2019, The Personal History of David Copperfield. Then 2018, Widows. 2017, Andy Serkis's Breathe. Have you ever heard of Breathe? No, there we go. 2014 was the last time that a major contender played the opening night slot, and that was The Imitation Game. That's not a great track record for where Saltburn's been placed. Also, the fact that it's not at TIFF, not at Venice, not at New York, all of that's a little bit iffy. But that said, those first stills look pretty good, pretty fantastic.
I think at least looking at this track record for London, the one thing you can say about all these movies, outside of Breathe, because obviously we haven't heard of it, is they all are at least enjoyable to great movies. We both really thought Matilda was fun. Harder They Fall is a lot of fun. Mangrove is great. Widows is great. Copperfield's fun. So at least it gives me more confidence that Saltburn isn't just like a stinker in the way like The Sun was last year. It's at least going to be a good movie, but is it going to be a great movie is the question.
Someone from our Discord has seen Saltburn and says that it is fantastic. They said that they didn't like Promising Young Woman that much, and this was a big improvement. I don't know though, the track record of the opening night film of London's got me nervous, but those stills have got me hotly anticipating this film. Next topic, The Bikeriders is getting a Telluride premiere. This is Jeff Nichols' new movie. He previously did Mud with McConaughey. He did Loving, which got Ruth Negga a Best Actress nomination. And The Bikeriders stars Jodie Comer, Austin Butler, and basically everyone else. It's a huge cast. I've been a little bit lower on this movie for a while, mostly because Jeff Nichols doesn't make very flashy films, and I think he'd have to make a film very different from how he normally makes movies in order to get Oscar traction. Otherwise, it's Armageddon Time, the way that James Gray never makes Oscar contenders, and Armageddon Time also wasn't one. From what I've heard from test screenings, The Bikeriders feels like it's another Mud, it's another Loving, it's another movie that is going to be good, but it's not going to get into Oscar conversation. In my opinion, I don't know. I see this as this year's Armageddon Time.
That is a good comparable. I think this will be better than Armageddon Time, because at least personally I didn't really like Armageddon Time. I could see this hitting like some maybe like critics groups, especially if Dune gets pushed and people still feeling the Austin Butler high, and if he's great in this, like, oh, here's a supporting actor at this place or at this place, but obviously nothing major throughout the award season. For Filmball at least, I could see this being like a pretty good like 8-9 pick, super late, where you could maybe pick up some points, but I don't see this getting maybe above like 200, 250 points would be like a strong cap.
The best shot for this movie movie is Jodie Comer. I've heard great stuff about her performance, and if anyone gets through for this, it would be Jodie Comer. She has earned it. She just won a Tony Award. She has been working, and there's a bit of a snub narrative around her for people that wish that she got in for The Last Duel. I'm not one of those people, but
I am.
I know you are. Jodie Comer could be a huge thing, either in lead or supporting, wherever she's placed. Next item, Strangers, the Andrew Haig British movie, now being released under the title All of Us Strangers. It's likely to hit Telluride, and it is doing the New York Film Festival. It's being released on December 22nd. This is one I've been saying all year long could be a major contender for Searchlight if it plays Venice. It's not playing Venice, but hey, it is doing other festivals, and if Poor Things ends up being divisive, which I don't think it will be, but we'll have to see about that.
Well, now that we know it's actually coming out this year and it's hitting Fest, I'm warming more up to this. I could see this definitely being maybe a lone screenplay nominee. I know Adapted's stacked, but Adapted's not going to be 5 Best Picture nominees like most of us are predicting at the moment. So this could like pop in there if it is a little bit more Academy friendly than some of his past work. But still, it's Searchlight. They know what they're doing. So if they're sending this to Telluride, New York, and it's getting that late December release date, they have an idea. They have a strategy, because as we talked about all season, obviously they have Poor Things. They have Next Goal Wins. They have this. They could easily pluck nominations for these movies and hit in specific spots.
I guess the way I see it with Searchlight, I think Next Goal Wins is the menu for them. It's their commercial play. Then the question is, Poor Things and Strangers. Which one is Empire of Light? Which one is Banshees? Right now, I'm saying Poor Things is Banshees. All of Us Strangers might be Empire of Light. But if Poor Things premieres, gets some like mixed response, then maybe Strangers is Banshees after all. Maybe that's their big movie. Let's talk about the New York Film Festival lineup, which is pretty goddamn stellar. As always, they curate the best of the best from the World Fests. And someone on Twitter and on Reddit, under the username The Film Maniac, made a really good observation, which is that every year since 2010, a Fall Fest premiere that plays at New York has gotten nominated for Best Picture. So that means it's not a holdover from Cannes. It's something that premiered in the fall, either at Venice, Telluride, or TIFF, or a New York premiere. One of those movies that plays in the main slate gets nominated. So that means Zone of Interest is ruled out for that. Anatomy of a Fall is ruled out for that, because those are Cannes premieres. That leaves 4 movies. The Film Maniac said 5. I'm going to take Evil Does Not Exist, the new Hamaguchi movie, the director of Drive My Car, taking that out of the equation. So that leaves us with 4 potentials. That's Poor Things, Strangers, Priscilla, and Ferrari. Of those 4, I'm leaning to Poor Things. What about you?
I am as well, because let alone the New York stat, Searchlight always gets one movie, and Venice at least gets 1, if not 2, if not 3 in every year. Poor Things is at Venice, it's at New York, it's Searchlight, it checks all the boxes. And if I had to say a second movie here, it would be the one that's also playing at Venice, Ferrari. I know that's a
Priscilla
very long
well.
shot. Priscilla too, so both of those would be the, I would say, the second and third ones in line, and then Strangers would be at 4. But, you know, sometimes the fall film festivals throw you for a loop, and Strangers could be the one to emerge.
I just have big hopes for Poor Things. I want
Me
Poor
too,
Things to
me
be
too.
good so bad. Yeah, that is our What Has Changed for the week. I think that we hit everything. I mean, we're recording this on Wednesday. This is probably releasing on the following Tuesday. So we've had an entire week of new information since we recorded this. So maybe we're super far behind. I don't know. Maybe something huge has happened. Maybe Dune was pushed. I have no idea. That said, let's get into these main predictions. This is what you've been waiting for. Let's drop our updated, for the month of August, Best Picture predictions. You're gonna see them on the screen right over here. Basically, like pretty far down. I'll probably go like into the mid-20s there. So you're gonna see I have Oppenheimer at number 1 right here. Oppenheimer 1, Barbie number 2. Though, I mean, we're in the thralls of Barbenheimer right now. It feels silly not to say that these two are frontrunners at the moment. But that said, these are placeholders. I don't know if I actually see them winning in the very end. The reason for that is the stat. The stat. The almighty stat. The one that I always reference. And that is that since 2008, there's only been one Best Picture winner, which has come from someone who was previously a director of a nominated film. So in 2008, Slumdog Millionaire, Danny Boyle, never nominated before. 2009, Hurt Locker, Catherine Bigelow, never nominated. King's Speech, The Artist, Argo, 12 Years a Slave, Then we have a stat breaker, which was Birdman, Alejandro Gonzalez Iñárritu. He was previously nominated in 2006 for Babel. After that, Spotlight, Moonlight, Shape of Water, all of these movies, literally every single year. This is maybe a coincidence. What I think that this stat says is that people like an underdog. And you can't really be an underdog if you are someone who people have voted for before. The other reason for this stat that I see, obviously there's no way to prove this, but I think that there is a big case to make. People view your previous film and hold it to such a pedestal that if your film is not clearly better unanimously than the previous films, people go, I wish that you won for this instead. Even now, if you go online and read what people say about The Departed, which is a fucking fantastic movie and absolutely deserved to win in 2006 Best Picture, people still say, Martin Scorsese shouldn't have won for that one. Well, where was his award for Goodfellas? Where was his award for Taxi Driver? And to me, what that says is that people don't just vote for a movie looking at the competition they have. They vote for a movie based on their preconceived notions of a filmmaker. So when people look at Oppenheimer, are they just going to be saying, oh, this is the best of the 10? No, they're also going to be saying, is this the best movie that Nolan has ever made? Some people say yes. Some people might not. And as we get closer to the end of the year, and as Barbenheimer hype dies down, we might see Oppenheimer kind of drop a little bit as people go, I wish he won for Inception. I wish he won for Dunkirk. Oh man, I would have voted for him if he got nominated for The Dark Knight, for Memento. There's baggage that comes with being a previous nominee, and there's baggage that comes with being a frontrunner all the way from July, all the way till the end of the year. So will Oppenheimer be a frontrunner near the end of the year? I think so. But I have this as a placeholder right now because this feels to me like a number 2 movie. This feels like The Power of the Dog. This feels like Roma. This feels like La La Land, the movie that people say is going to be that winner all year long, and then suddenly at the very last minute, something else comes and overthrows it. Now, what could that be? I don't know. I previously said The Color Purple might be an underdog. That's from a first-timer. But is Warner Brothers getting 3 movies as frontrunners? I don't know. They could get nominations, but I'm losing confidence in The Color Purple. And there's not many other movies from first-time directors that are really standing out to me. So Oppenheimer is my number 1 until a reasonable alternative presents itself. But even harder than the stat of being nominated and winning a later one is winning a second one. The last person to achieve that was Clint Eastwood, who won for Unforgiven in 1992 and also Million Dollar Baby in 2004. Killers of the Flower Moon is a certain nomination. It is not going to be a stat breaker. I could see Oppenheimer being a stat breaker because there are people who are saying this is the best movie of his career. I'm not seeing anyone saying, wow, Killers of the Flower Moon, Martin Scorsese has never made a movie this good. They're like, yeah, this is another great Martin Scorsese movie. An important thing, if we are looking for a stat breaker, though, is looking for a movie that differentiates itself from previous movie that that director had been nominated for. Birdman, which was the last stat breaker, that was such a singular movie. It was so different. It almost felt like it was from a fresh voice, even though Iñárritu had been nominated in the past. Barbie feels like it could be a stat breaker. And let's be real, director nomination, Golden Globe win, possibly a PGA win, possibly a SAG win, adapted screenplay win. This is top 3. People are going to look at me and say, you might be overrating it a little bit. No. This is winning adapted screenplay. This has win potential, and it could be a stat breaker because, yeah, people might go, oh, I liked Lady Bird better. Oh, I liked Little Women better. But this movie's so different from those movies that it's hard to compare it. Barbie is nothing like Little Women. It is so singular, so different. If any movie is the stat breaker this year, I think it's Barbie. But that said, I could see this suffer on the preferential ballot because there might be a bit of a backlash around the fact that it is a toy commercial. There will undoubtedly be a lot of advertisement around it around Christmas time, milking this property for everything that it's worth. It could suffer on the preferential from people who view it as too childish, from people who view it as too commercial, and that could be a game breaker for this one. Anyways, what do you think about that, Dylan?
No, I think he made great points for both Oppenheimer and Barbie, how they're very much different, not just from the director's last work, but from what most of them have done. Nolan's never done a biopic. Greta Gerwig's never done anything like Barbie. I think what's really interesting is looking at your Best Picture 10 here. You have 6 movies from returners. That would be a stat breaker if they win Best Picture.
7. I only have 3, which
the 3 new ones are Spider-Verse, Zone, Color Purple. Oh yeah, you're right. Holdovers is nominated for Best Picture nominee as well. So yes, wow.
And that's another big stat. And this stat hurts me. So this is another one to look at, which is if you look at any year's lineup of 10 nominees, for the most part, you're gonna see between 4 to 6 of those nominees be from people who have never directed a Best Picture nominee in the past. At the moment, I only have 3 in my top 10, but that's because I'm balancing so many other things. Like, I feel like this is a bit of a weird year. All of the movies that are coming from big directors are actually ending up being good. This is how a lineup at the beginning of the year usually looks, where you're just going off of, oh, well, this guy's made a movie that got nominated before. This makes sense. I guess we'll just throw Yorgos Lanthimos in. I guess we'll just throw David Fincher in. Let's throw Scorsese in. Gerwig, Nolan, throw him in. All of those movies are turning out to actually be good. And we don't see that normally. We usually see some stuff flop. Like, last year, Empire of Light is a great example. Sam Mendes has a new movie. Let's just throw him in the lineup. You can't go wrong with Sam Mendes. And then the movie was not good. Or Bardo in Iñárritu. That was another one last year where we were just like, okay, well, Bardo's gotta be in because Iñárritu's in. All of those movies, the equivalent of Bardo this year is actually ending up to be a contender. We're not seeing the Empire of Lights of this year fail, and that's why it's looking so hard to put fresh nominees in this lineup. So The Holdovers is likely to win TIFF. It's probably an acting contender. That said, if there's any movie that's Empire of Light at the moment, any movie that's Bardo, something that we have high hopes for going into the festivals, that flops, it's The Holdovers. It's safe to say at this point, Dune is going to be as good or better than the first one. We've heard enough about Poor Things, we've heard enough about The Killer, that we know those are going to be really great, but The Holdovers could still come in a little bit under expectations. Then there's Dune Part 2. This could get pushed. If it does get pushed, I will be sad, but my life will be easier because I can replace this with something like Past Lives or Anatomy of a Fall. Dune is likely to be stronger than Avatar 2 was last year. It's likely to get a lot more tech nominations because this does look like a bit of a step up from the first film. Then, of course, the 3 movies that are fresh nominees here. The Color Purple, I'm losing a little bit of faith in, especially because it doesn't look like it's going to be a cultural phenomenon in the way that I was hoping for. If you look at the trailer up against all the other Warner Brothers trailers that have released recently, this one has one of the lowest trailer view counts. It only has 9.5 million trailer views. You look at that versus like the Barbie trailer, that had like 36 million views. This is much closer to like Blue Beetle in terms of how many people are watching this trailer. It doesn't give me a lot of faith. Plus, the avenue for a Best Picture win for The Color Purple is it needs a SAG win, and it needs director or screenplay. Are we really going to bank on it not winning director and screenplay and still winning Best Picture? I wouldn't say so. So yeah, The Color Purple I am losing big faith in. I could see this leave the top 10 even in the following weeks, especially because it's not at any fall fest and it could push. Then Zone of Interest. For a long time I was saying both this and Past Lives would be strong enough individually to both make it in, but at the moment I don't think that's the case. I'm going to just pick one A24 movie, and this one has a great release date, December 8th. It's playing TIFF. It's playing New York. It might be playing Telluride. The reviews are going to hold strong. Even if they don't stay at 99 out of 100, they're going to stay above 95. The buzz is going to continue to grow, and BAFTA is going to give this one a big, big boost. So Zone of Interest is like solid in there. Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, maybe I'm hope-dicting here. Maybe this is just me clinging on to something that I had a couple months ago. I don't think people are going to forget this movie. I don't think people are going to forget what a cultural phenomenon this was on release. The reviews aren't going to disappear. The critics' love isn't going to disappear just because Barbenheimer kind of came in and took the spotlight from this movie. People are going to come back to this one. It still remains one of the most critically loved, one of the most audience well-received movies of the year. I think people are going to remember this at the end of the year. Poor Things might be divisive, which is why it's a little bit lower on the list, but Searchlight is going all in on this one. It's got a December release date, Telluride, Venice, New York, skipping TIFF because they want me to be a very sad boy. This looks like the Searchlight push of the year, and Searchlight, they don't miss. Unless the film is Jackie, and then they miss in 2016. Otherwise, they don't miss. There is still a possibility, though, that this gets mixed reception and something else like All of Us Strangers takes its place. Finally, I need one Netflix movie in the top 10. If last year taught us anything, it's that Netflix will get one in the same way that Searchlight will. I'm leaning towards The Killer right now. I'm hearing amazing things from the buzz. The Venice programmers are very high on this one. It seems like a very dark, violent film with a lot of clear influences of like 1960s art house movies. It's probably going to unite the populist and artsy sides of the Academy, the people that just love the movies and people who are like, ooh, I love the cinema. They're going to converge. They're going to love this movie. So the release date, though, is a little concerning. This has released earlier than most Netflix contenders in the past. So that early November release date is a little bit concerning for me. This one could drop and it would be replaced by something like Naiad, like May December, like Maestro. I just don't know yet. So that's my top 10. Any thoughts there? What do you think?
I mean, I have my normal thoughts about your 10. I am someone who does have the holdovers on my outside looking in, trying to get ahead of the curve a little bit here, and that also allows me to have a new, fresh nominee. I do have Anatomy of a Fall in my 10. I do have Past Lives in my 10 in place of Across the Spider-Verse. I still think Color Purple should maybe be a little bit low with how Barbie is catching on to the zeitgeist and everything. I still have it in my 10. I just don't have it top 5, top 6. For me, I would move Zone up a spot, Color Purple down 2 with Past Lives ahead of that at number 7. So Color Purple would be my number 8 at this current moment.
I'll address Past Lives first, which you'll see I have at my number 12 spot. I know. Okay, on one hand, this movie is going to get a major resurgence when we get to the Critics Awards. It's not going to fully fizz out because critics will revive it. It's going to do well at the New York Film Critics Circle, at the LA Film Critics Circle, at the National Society of Film Critics. But do we see this doing well at the Golden Globes? Do we see this doing well at the BAFTAs? Probably will do pretty well at the Critics' Choice, but I feel like this might just be an outside contender, especially because, while yes, it's going to get a resurgence, on the other hand, this fizzled out in a way that none of us expected. And especially for a movie with Oscar buzz, the way that this movie kind of just flatlined is not the way that you should be for a movie like this. Plus, many of the categories where it looked really, really good are getting crowded. Like, what nominations is this getting? Outside of picture, actress, screenplay. It looked like it was win competitive for screenplay at one point. It might still be. Maybe that's the way that it gets in, but I don't have it winning screenplay at the moment. For best actor, Yuteo's not in the 5. He would be if he was in supporting actor, where in supporting actor, John Magaro is definitely not in the top 5. Score, you might be able to make an argument for. This was once a top 5 movie, and now it's gonna be 9th or 10th. If this gets into Best Picture, it's women talking at best. And it might be out entirely. It might be The Farewell. A24 had something, and then they prioritized other stuff. Especially if Priscilla is amazing, they might just drop it entirely.
The fizzle out kind of makes sense because it came in theaters, it's left theaters, it's not available for anyone to watch at the moment. What was its biggest detractor was when it premiered at Sundance, everyone says, this is going to be the best movie of the year, unequivocally, no questions asked. And it came out, and people thought it was great. They just didn't think it was the 10 out of 10 masterpiece that a lot of people had said previously that it could be. And I feel like that is now kind of hurting it in the moment. And I'll be interested to see when it does hit digital here, I think right when TIFF wraps, how much of a resurgence it gets on like the online buzz. And then obviously, like you talked about, critic circles will revive it. I still think this will be a picture, screenplay, and then what else comes. Because I feel like it's stronger than Women Talking ever was. Still at this moment right now. It's just where can it rise back up when we get later in the year.
Next, I'll talk about Anatomy of a Fall. And I'm going to say something fucking wild right now, Dylan.
I like it though.
There is a world where Anatomy of a Fall wins Best Picture. Hear me out.
Actually, that's not what I thought you were gonna say.
Hear me out.
I thought you were gonna say screenplay.
No. That's the avenue. Okay, so if Past Lives really does slip, and it doesn't win Best Original Screenplay, and The Holdovers turns out to be mid, Anatomy of a Fall would win Original Screenplay. If it wins Original Screenplay, it's top 3. And if it's top 3, it has that underdog narrative. Sandra Hüller could win Best Actress. This will win International Feature. And as a middle-brow courtroom thriller that appeals to the artsy crowd, but is also like a bit of an airport novel, it's a thriller about someone murdering their husband, maybe not. It's like a Hitchcockian type thing. It could have broad enough appeal to win Best Picture. I'm not saying that this will happen, but I can see a world where it does. I'm looking for those underdogs. I'm looking for something that could run. This could end up getting many Golden Globe nominations. This could end up getting many BAFTA nominations. The tricky thing with this is the guilds. This might slip with PGA, with DGA, with some of those main guild awards. But that said, it is on the outside of my lineup at the moment because, for one thing, the 10 feels so stuffed right now. And Neon, they can't always get their Palme d'Or winners in. Like they just did with Triangle of Sadness. They're not going to do it every single year. As much as they got a win with Parasite, Anatomy of a Fall is not going to be as fun as Parasite. It's not going to have that connection to the youth the way that Parasite did. Like Parasite was such a huge success, not just because people loved it. It was a huge success because it had such a broad populist appeal. People went to see it in theaters. This one probably won't be a financial hit. What other precursors is this going to get? So that's why it's just outside, but if it is in the top 10, ooh, baby boy, this might win Best Picture.
One thing I guess to back you up here with Anatomy of a Fall is I know that a fair share of just like general audience members who know about this movie are like, oh, when is this out? I've heard good things. And they're like, oh, can we go see this? I'm like, it doesn't come out for like another like 6 months at this point, because like they heard it one can and they heard the premise and like, oh, this sounds fun. So like I think that backs you up. There's no trailer out for this at the moment, so I think a big tell would be when that trailer drops, what's its reaction like online? Because I could see a world where maybe it's not as strong as Parasite, but it catches on for like the general box office going, because there is English in this movie, which I feel like the trailer will be more focused on that to help sell tickets, kind of like Triangle of Sadness last year. While Triangle of Sadness is primarily in English, there's parts that aren't. So the same thing here.
It's a crowd pleaser. That's going to be the biggest thing in this movie's favor. It also really appeals to that artsy, more snobby crowd. So I don't know. I'm not saying it's happening. Again, of course I'm not saying it's happening. It's my number 11, but it could happen, and that would be wild. So afterwards, Saltburn. I've been doubting this all year long because of the sophomore curse for Best Picture nominees, but the first pictures of this movie look good. Ooh, lordy lord. And yeah, like we were saying earlier, someone in our Discord has seen it, they loved it, but even he isn't putting it in picture, he has it in screenplay and nothing else. That would mean this could be Glass Onion, where it gets great reviews, it gets rave reactions for a major performance in it, the way that Janelle Monáe did last year. Barry Keoghan could be the same this year. So it's possible that this is an excellent movie that everyone loves, that people are talking about all year long, that just ends up missing anyways. Like Glass Onion, like If Beale Street Could Talk. So maybe that's where Saltburn is. After that, Maestro, which is another one I've been writing off as a sophomore slump movie, but maybe it isn't. Maybe this is not Florian Zeller's The Sun. Maybe this is just going to be as good as it seemed initially. Netflix gave it a great release date. They gave it their prime award season release date. Theaters beginning of December, Netflix December 22nd. It's in Venice competition, and the programmers there have said it's one of their favorites. But it's not at the New York Film Festival. Why is it not at the New York Film Festival? Maybe that's a bad sign. This one could be big, and Bradley Cooper could boost it through his Best Actor campaign. Then, Air. This one could come back. It's at my number 15 right now, but think about it this way. What other nominations can Air get? Usually films like this that are big at the beginning of the year and then kind of die out and then have a resurgence at the end of the year, they have that resurgence on the back of technical work that keeps it in the conversation in other categories. Think last year with Elvis. Elvis, people talked about it first, and then it died out. And then it came back like October, November. And the reason it did that was because it was in the conversation for costume design. It was in the conversation for production design, for Best Actor, for Best Editing, all of these things. And that helped it get that resurgence in Best Picture. What does Air have? It has screenplay. It has maybe Matt Damon, maybe Viola Davis. That's it. That might hurt it. Also, if Amazon shifts their focus to Saltburn, this is gone. Next up, May, December. Another Netflix movie, has another great release date, a very enticing New York Film Festival opening spot, but the reactions seem very polarizing, especially people in our Discord who have seen it were very underwhelmed. They were like, it didn't give me what I wanted. Maybe this movie could be a little bit too polarizing to get in. Some people love it, some people just kind of come out of it feeling, I just don't know if I can see this one going the distance with the type of film that it seems to be. Also, because it feels like the acting categories, the actors in this are getting crowded out. Natalie Portman, is she getting nominated? I don't think so. Charles Melton, supporting actor, has shaped up a lot. I don't see him getting nominated. Julianne Moore is on the edge, and even on the edge in a category where there's nothing. Supporting actress is dead, and she still might not get nominated. May December is feeling pretty damn dead to me. I know you're more confident in it. I'd love to hear why.
For me, at least, it has that more above the line play where something like Nyad or Rustin doesn't have as much of. It could get an actress, as you talked about, supporting actor, supporting actress, screenplay. Those are 4 above the line categories where it could still muster its way in, even if it misses picture. And that release date that we talked about, as well as hitting all of these festivals, shows Netflix is putting energy behind it. But as we saw last year, Netflix can force Glass Onion down our throats. People still aren't going to buy it, and they'll still go with what they actually want. So it just seems like the one Netflix is trying the hardest with at the moment. So that's why I have the backing for it. But clearly, Maestro could come up, Naya could come up, Rustin could come up.
I guess the way I see May December is like, it might just be Bardo or Glass Onion, where Netflix wanted it to happen all year long, and it just didn't latch on, and people just didn't connect with it. I think that might be what happens, that no matter how hard they push it, maybe it just doesn't work for them. Afterwards, All of Us Strangers at number 17. The reason I've got All of Us Strangers here, it's got a good release date from Searchlight, and if Poor Things drops off, this would replace it. But here's my question. Why is this missing TIFF? Why is this missing Venice? That doesn't feel right to me. That feels like a warning sign. And it could be Searchlight's push. It feels very small, very indie. It might not be that type of movie. I'm keeping an eye on it, but it might not be a thing at all. Then afterwards, number 18, Nyad. This could be a major surprise at TIFF, and this is a People's Choice contender. Mark my words. This could be big. Annette Bening could be big. I'm not saying it will be big, but just that there's the potential there, especially because if Netflix has nothing else at TIFF outside of Pain Hustlers and Fair Play, we gotta consider this. Then, number 19, The Boy and the Heron. I could see a world where this builds critic buzz, but at the same time, audience reception in Japan has been pretty mixed. The legs there in the box office have been pretty awful. That said, it would be a fun narrative push based on the legacy of Hayao Miyazaki. I find it a little bit hard to believe that this is happening at this point in the race, but it's fun to hope-dict about. And then, number 20, Next Goal Wins. If Poor Things and Strangers don't work out and Next Goal wins, is something fun, is a People's Choice Award contender, maybe this will be fun. I think it's going to get greatest beer run ever. I think critics are going to put out the hit for this one. I could see it getting 40s to like low 50s on Metacritic. I think that this one's going to be kind of killed. So yeah, I don't see Taika Waititi getting another Best Picture nominee at this point. Maybe a few years down the line, maybe with a more serious topic, but not with Next Goal Wins. Then 21, Asteroid City, likely to be forgotten, but it's possible that if Holdovers flops, focus could go all in on Asteroid City. Also, if it somehow makes a resurgence for Craft's Love, the way I was talking about how Air will not have that happen, if this one comes back for production design, for score, maybe even for original screenplay, this could end up coming back into the conversation. Plus, Wes Anderson has another movie, an anthology of short films that's releasing in the fall. That might give this a boost that could put it back into the race. Number 22, Napoleon. Where is this at fall festivals? I know I've heard that it might not be done, but I'm just not getting good vibes from this. Ridley Scott is wildly inconsistent, and Joaquin seems to be sleepwalking through this role. Also, it's the type of film that the Academy just doesn't go for anymore. Maybe 20 years ago, they would have really gone for something like this. This is not the type of movie that gets nominated. But that said, the battles look massive. They look very impressive. This could be a technical player in cinematography, in production design, in costume design, in makeup. Could get boosted due to that. Also, though, Apple TV has Killers of the Flower Moon, so they'll probably be focusing a lot more on that.
For me, at least, I think its path to anything above the line comes from its text. As we've talked about before, visual effects looks like it's a little light. Maybe it can get in for some of the war sequences. Costumes could be good. Makeup could be good. Sound could be there. That's potential for 4 maybe techs. And 4 techs plus if Joaquin's a lot better in the movie than he is in the trailers, is a somewhat nice package to make it into like the Best Picture race. I don't have it as a top 15 movie. I'm a little higher than you. I have it around like 17 to 20 range. I don't know, is Apple handling the campaigning? Is it Sony? Are they going to do it as a mix together? I think if it's Sony, it may have a little bit of a better shot because obviously Apple is putting everything behind Marty. I think some interesting stuff from what you've mentioned here above. The Boy and the Heron, if it's getting this kind of mixed buzz, does that hurt it an animated feature to possibly allow room for like a Nimona, a TMNT to break into the race? Everything that you mentioned with All of Us Strangers, Naiad, and a movie that you'll be talking about here soon, Rustin, of how they're all kind of campaigning for like the same type of slots in a lot of categories from the same type of studios, and they all kind of rely on a movie above them to be bad for them to get in.
But that's how this game works a lot of the time. It's not entirely based on what are the best movies of the year. It is based on money. It is based on, if you look at a distributor, how much attention can they put to get this movie in front of voters' eyes. Very, very rarely do things happen organically where people just watch a movie and go, oh, I want to nominate that. It's usually all focused on how much money is spent on a movie, and that's just the sad fact of Oscar campaigning. So if we look at Netflix, if we look at Searchlight, if we look at Warner Brothers, you can't have all of those movies coexist. They're fighting for attention from that studio, for the same money from that studio to get ads, to get parties, to get all of these campaign things that will lead people to remember it when they go to their ballots, especially when we're talking Napoleon. Maybe Apple TV just doesn't care about the film in the same way and they kind of dump it. Then afterwards, the Bikeriders, I have at number 23. I've been mixed on this for a long time. I said earlier most of my thoughts on it. It's got a good release date, but if it's not entirely different from Jeff Nichols' normal movies, which are very low key, this is not an Oscar thing. I think he needs to do something much bigger. Otherwise, this is just Armageddon time, and that's how I kind of feel at this point. Then number 24, this is a bit of a deep cut here, and that's American Fiction, which is being released by MGM Orion. It's playing at TIFF, and I believe that this could be a huge surprise. This is the directorial debut of Cord Jefferson, who is a TV director. He directed on The Watchmen, which is one of my favorite shows. We don't know much about this movie at all. There are no pictures. The director has not done any movies before. All we know is the plot synopsis and Jeffrey Wright. There's enough there to make me feel like this could be a major shocker coming out of TIFF. The same way that if we look back to 2016, no one thought that Moonlight was going to be a huge contender from TIFF. Same with Green Book in 2018. No one thought that was going to be a huge contender out of TIFF. This is feeling to me like a breakout, but I don't know anything more about it. That's why it's very low. It could rise up very, very quickly once we see it at TIFF. 25, Rustin. Coleman Domingo, he makes or breaks it. It's too old-fashioned of an Oscar contender, maybe in the past, not now. And then I'm going to change the thing over here because it's only gone up to 25. It's going to go up to 34 now. And 3, 2, 1. Number 26, Sound of Freedom.
Boom.
You guys are probably laughing your asses off at me right now, but I want to pitch a very scary possibility here. Is there enough conservatives in the Academy that we should be worried about this film making a Best Picture play? All you need to get into Best Picture is 5% of number 1 votes on your ballot. Do we think that there is 5% of the Academy that aligns with this sort of audience? At the end of the year, what if Angel Studios is like, Oscar voters, vote for this important movie? Is there 5% of the Academy that could push this through to a nomination? Now, that said, if this does happen, and I could see it happen, the same way that last year we would have said at this point, RRR, no way. And at the end of the year, it looked like a possible top 15 contender. This one, if it gets in, it would probably get picture and nothing else. Maybe original song.
I think the biggest thing holding this movie back besides the obvious stuff is other movies that you can make the same argument for of campaigning to either a very Christian ideal mindset had big stars or big directors or a big studio behind them. Obviously, I'm not saying American Sniper or that one movie with Andrew Garfield directed by Mel Gibson are the same ththings. Hacksaw Ridge. I'm not saying they're the same things, but they kind of appeal to possibly the same demographics. I say that as someone who hasn't seen Sound of Freedom. It feels like those are people who it's targeting for. Those two movies broke in, but as I mentioned before, one had Bradley Cooper and Clint Eastwood, the other one had Andrew Garfield and Mel Gibson. This movie has neither of that. So that's where I think the biggest hurdle for this is coming over. There's not a star, a big name, acclaimed director to latch on to. I can see the angle. I like what you're saying comparing it to RRR. It would feel very much like that, where it's picture or bust, and maybe it can pick up another tech. The one issue here is what precursor would dive into this.
Oh,
I
no
think
one
it would
has
have
to
hit something. I
don't
guess it doesn't
think so.
have to. But like the Academy, most members follow into another precursor at least some point on the way. So like I feel like if there is like a little sneaking suspicion for it, it could pop up. I don't know about PGA's makeup, but this does sound like a random 10th slot PGA, like because money, it made a lot of money, but I don't know if they would go with that, because obviously they could go with stuff like Barbie or Oppenheimer or various other, Across the Spider-Verse, various other more populous, more well-received movies that also made a buku of money.
Even if it does get nominated, I think it's going to miss largely everywhere through the season. Like, this is going to be one that I think some critics groups will go all in for, and we'll just hear rumblings about like, oh, is this possible? Could it happen?
You know what?
Maybe it does.
I just thought of it.
It'd be like To Leslie.
That's what I was going to say. If it happens, it's just like To Leslie last year, where we hear about 2 days before nominations.
Yeah. Well, we'll have to watch for campaigning, like on Twitter. If we're starting to see people talking about this one, being like, oh my god, it's so important, Best Picture. Ooh, be worried. Be very worried. Be very concerned.
Hear that out there? Everyone, grab your 100-to-1 odds now.
Yeah. Imagine. I don't know about what you were saying about it not having stars. Jim Caviezel, who, he played Jesus in Mel Gibson's Passion of the Christ. That man is a star in this community. Plus, just the narrative of how much money it made. Like, I don't think it needs that star power that other movies would. Also, original screenplay. I'll talk about that in a little bit, but original screenplay is really weak this year. What if Sound of Freedom somehow makes its way in?
I know our thumbnail now.
It's like spicy, but we have to talk about the possibility of this happening. Anyways, okay.
We do.
27, Dumb Money. I've heard bad things. We're gonna see very soon. The trailer didn't sell me, which sucks because, like, I would love this movie to be good. I like Craig Gillespie. It just feels low energy to me. I don't know. 27, I could be wrong about. Then 28, Priscilla. Is there gonna be Elvis fatigue, like superhero fatigue? A24 has other contenders, but this is playing Venice, Telluride, and New York. Maybe this could be one of A24's main pushes. Maybe this surpasses Past Lives and becomes number 2 for A24. Then, number 29, another deep cut, The Royal Hotel, which is a neon film. This is another potential TIFF surprise. It's directed by Kitty Green, who previously did the Weinstein film, The Assistant. This is also coming out of Australia, and is sort of from what I gather, like a thriller set in the outback. It sounds really interesting. I don't know much more about it. I'm just looking forward to seeing it, and it could be a potential surprise through the season. Then there is Wonka, which would need Kraft's love. I don't know if there's room for this film this year, but it's still worth mentioning. Number 31, Ferrari. I'm getting the feeling I am drastically underestimating this film, especially because in our recording session earlier, in our yesterday video, which we talked about fall festival movies and drafted them, you mentioned that this was the biggest bidding war that A24 and Neon have ever been a part of. I didn't know that before. Maybe I need to put Ferrari up higher, especially because it's hitting Venice, it's hitting New York. It seems to be good. They spent so much money on this, and they were stuck with a bad distributor for so long. It feels like a Heaven's Gate level flop. Like, there's just something that feels really weird about it to me. Plus, Adam Driver in the lead role. We've seen him play a Italian businessman in the past in House of Gucci, and it was not good. That's poisoning me a lot for this movie. I just think of this as an extension of House of Gucci. I can't see him being really outstanding in this role, and I feel like if Ferrari becomes a contender, Adam Driver would have to be too, and I don't see that happening. So Ferrari is low, but I'm probably wrong about this. I think I am drastically underestimating it. Maybe this should be mid-20s. Maybe this should be above Dumb Money, at least. Then at 32, The Iron Claw. This is doing no fest. It's releasing near Christmas Day. A24 has no room, but what if? What if this becomes something big? Then, finally, The Creator. It's definitely not happening, especially now that we know it's not doing fests, as sometimes these fall blockbusters do, but maybe it's still really good. I don't know. I'm not predicting it. Then, lastly, Origin, which is Ava DuVernay's new movie. It's not happening, but it's worth putting out there because Ava DuVernay is an interesting filmmaker, and maybe this could be underestimated. Maybe it could be a surprise at Venice.
Ironclaw doesn't really speak to me, but I could see the lead actor, Jeremy Allen White, pop up here to here in some various places. This movie is very well received. I know we've had this discussion before about TV actors come into movies. Do they get the same reception? I don't think this is an Oscar play, but he's very well liked in The Bear. He could pop up at some critics groups, possibly. The Creator's one I'm very interested for, but obviously it's not really an awards player. Ferrari, I'll hold my comments. I'm a lot higher on this movie than you are. And Origins one, I think could really rise up the ranks very fast. Like you mentioned, Ava DuVernay is a very interesting and well-liked, very acclaimed filmmaker. If this movie is a hit, who knows? Maybe this is Netflix's push of the year. I guess we'll find out come Venice.
I don't want you to hold your thoughts on Ferrari. I want you to tell me why I'm wrong. I really think I'm wrong, but I just feel so weird about Michael Mann in a late career movie making a $90 million biopic that no one wanted until suddenly everyone wanted it.
There has to be a reason, let alone A24, but Neon as well went so far out of their way. I'm pretty sure the report came from Next Best Picture, one of their podcasts, where they said, Neon A24 had a very high bidding war for both of them, and Neon ended up coming out on top. And there has to be a reason why this is hitting all of these festivals and getting headlining slots. It's not just like, it's a part of the gala. It's a closing night film at New York. It is in competition at Venice. Obviously, Blonde was in competition last year at Venice. There's room for it to be a major flop. Adam Driver is someone who I really like as well, so I didn't think he was awful in House of Gucci. I didn't think he was great. I thought he was kind of just there. But he's someone who's done a lot with a little before in his career. And I don't know, it has below-the-line potential as well. Sound, editing, maybe there's a score play, maybe there's a costumes play like you talked about last week in the craft category video. It has a package. I'm sure you're not alone in the Michael Mann is not very good at the moment. And if this movie's a lot better than people think, they may oversell it. Like, oh my gosh, this blew my mind.
The next time I do Best Picture predictions, I'm going to end up moving this all the way up to like 1920.
Next time we'll do Best Picture will be my turn. The movie will be seen by then, and next time you have it, it'll be a month afterwards, so this movie could drop. This was a pretty long but deep dive, and I think very necessary video for what the Best Picture race looks like pre-Fall Film Festival season. Obviously, Matt and I differ a little bit with some specific stuff, but this is his lineup here. I gave some of my thoughts throughout this, and if you're interested in my own thoughts, consider joining the Discord down below. We talk about this all the time with so many different people, as well as our letterbox, which are attached in the description down below. You can kind of see our thoughts on movies, and if you like what we had to say, consider dropping a like, a subscription. We have new content each and every week, and like Matt just talked about, we'll have new predictions coming out this whole week because we're splitting this up this time. Normally picture, director, screenplays are together, but today it's all Best Picture and tomorrow is director and both screenplay categories. So if you want to hear my thoughts about director, both of our thoughts about screenplay, definitely come back tomorrow. But until then, my name is Dyl.
And my name is Matt, and this is Fantasy Filmball.